What is insulin resistance and what does it have to do with your fertility? If you're new here, I'm Rita Johnson, owner of Divine Mercy Nutritional Care, and I help women with reproductive health issues to take their health back into their own hands. I want to talk to you today about insulin resistance because it's so common as we're going through workups for infertility to find out that we are insulin resistant. And oftentimes we have several questions that come up as a result of that too. Does that mean I'm going to get diabetes? What does this have to do with my fertility? How is this going to impact me tomorrow? And what can I do right now to be sure that this doesn't continue to snowball? Well, the good news is there's a lot that you can do in regards to addressing insulin resistance through dietary and lifestyle changes. But before I get into all that, I really want to start by talking about what is insulin resistance in the first place. So I want to start with some basics on digestion to help us understand what insulin resistance is. Different foods can be broken down into three macronutrient components. We have carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Carbohydrates are burned the fastest, and oftentimes what that means is they're quickly reduced into sugars when we consume them, as they're broken down in our stomachs into sugar components. Proteins and fats take the longest to digest and have the smallest amount of sugars present in them. So these sugars that we're eating can cause our body to react. If we have too much sugar, anytime it goes too high too fast, what happens is our body sees this as an emergency. So an emergency is going to cause your body to release cortisol, to release a high amount of insulin that's going to soak up those sugars for later. So this really is kind of going back to when we first would eat sugar, we needed to store sugar for later because our body didn't know when it would get fed again. So it stored all of that sugar, and then later we would be able to utilize that if we went for 5, 6, 10 hours in between now and our next meal. What has happened now is that the standard American diet with high amounts of sugar and refined foods are so packed full of sugars in them that as we eat, our sugar levels goes too high too fast. Our insulin level then corresponds to that. It will go higher, the amount of insulin our body is releasing to soak up all of that sugar in a hurry because it sees that as an emergency. Well, then, after it absorbs all of that sugar, our blood sugar levels naturally plummet. They go too low too fast. And this is where we get hangry, we get moody, we get irritable, we oftentimes even get shaky. We just need to eat something. We need to eat something quickly. And we always crave in those situations sugar and refined carbohydrates because our body instinctually knows that it will quickly be able to utilize that food as another source of sugar. What happens over time is if we're on this roller coaster of blood sugar spikes and dips, then our cells, which know that insulin can become toxic to them, stop responding to that insulin because they don't want to get so saturated with insulin that they're no longer able to function optimally. So what happens is our body stops responding to the insulin. The insulin receptors themselves start to go away. Our cells say, hey, we're good. We've had a lot of you lately and we don't want more. Then the result is that our blood sugar level skyrockets. When we normally would have a spike, our body continues to operate from this place of sugar levels being too high for too long. And this can cause a whole host of other issues. We can have inflammation result. Our cortisol levels, which are also what's telling our body that it's an emergency, our sugar levels are too high right now, continue to be high and sustained. And all of these things do not bode well for fertility. Anytime we have elevated cortisol levels or cortisol surging too high too fast, cortisol is taking those building blocks that our body needs to be able to make sex hormones, our progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. So in other words, when cortisol goes up, progesterone, estrogen, testosterone goes down. This is why, for those of you that chart your cycles, we oftentimes can see a delay in menstruation or even ovulation when we are under high amounts of stress because that cortisol is competing for those building blocks that we need to be able to make those sex hormones. And this ties us back to what does insulin resistance have to do with fertility? If our insulin is constantly spiking and dropping, then we're going to have a cascade effect. And unfortunately, at the bottom of that waterfall is our sex hormones. You can think of them as our low-hanging fruit. So if our blood sugar levels are constantly dysregulated, then we're also going to have an impact on our thyroid, on our adrenals, and ultimately on our sex hormones. So what can you do about insulin resistance? It's very common to be prescribed a medication called metformin that does help your body to re-regulate your blood sugar levels and allow your cells to respond better to the insulin that's being created. However, if we don't also take measures to improve our diet, to focus on incorporating more nutrient-dense whole foods and less of the foods that our body instantly recognizes as sugars, then we're going to continue to see this cycle happen where our body continues to respond poorly and it has to be managed through medication. Another thing we can do to help our body become more sensitized to insulin are things like intermittent fasting and exercise. Exercise is the one that I really incorporate a lot with my clients because it's so easy to see a tangible relationship between exercise and our overall health. I do want to caution you with intermittent fasting. It's not always right for everybody at all times of your cycle. So please be sure that you're working with someone that's helping you to monitor how well your body is responding to intermittent fasting if you do decide to do that. If you enjoyed this video, I hope that you'll like and subscribe it for more content from me. I also want to invite you, if the information I have shared here sounds like something you want to dive deeper into and know how it would work with your health and history and the signs and symptoms you're experiencing right now, please sign up for a discovery call from me. It's always free, and we talk about what's been going on with your health and fertility and how nutritional therapy can help you to feel better than you ever thought possible.